When my son told me, "Stop wasting my money," he never imagined that the next day he would wake up to find all his accounts empty and his father gone forever. But let me tell you how I got to that point, because this story I'm about to share is one I've held in my heart for 5 years. My name is James, I'm 72 years old, and what you're about to hear is the rawest truth a father can live through. It is a story of ingratitude, but also of dignity and second chances. Because sometimes when life turns its back on you, you have to be the one to take the reins and show what you're truly made of. It all began 6 years ago when my dear wife, Hope, passed away after 45 years of marriage. I was left alone in that big house in Oak Creek with my memories and my retirement funds. But I wasn't truly alone. I had my son, Richard, who was 48, married with 2 teenage children. He was my pride, my continuation in this world. After Hope's funeral, Richard approached me with a proposal that, at that moment, seemed like a blessing. "Dad," he said, "managing your finances alone at your age, Mom always took care of that. Let me help you. Transfer your accounts to my name so I can manage everything. That way you don't have to worry about a thing." I, devastated by the loss and feeling truly lost with numbers and banks, agreed. Richard was right. Hope had always handled our money. She was the organized one, the one who paid the bills, the one who saved every dollar. I just worked and handed her my paycheck. So I signed the papers. I transferred my house, my pension, my life savings to him. Everything was put in Richard's name. He assured me it was only for convenience, that it was still my money, but that this way he could better help me with expenses and financial decisions. For the first few months, everything worked well. Richard paid the house bills, gave me money for my personal expenses, for my medicines. I felt at ease, protected. I thought I had a responsible son who cared about his old father, but things began to change gradually. First, it was little comments. "Dad, you spent a lot at the grocery store this week." Or, "What do you need so many medicines for?" Or, "That coffee you buy is very expensive. There are cheaper brands." At first, I paid it no mind. I thought it was normal for a son to be concerned about the family's finances, but the comments became more frequent and harsher. One day, I wanted to buy a gift for my granddaughter Sophia for her 15th birthday. She was my first granddaughter, the light of my eyes. I wanted to buy her a little gold chain that I had seen in the jewelry store downtown, something special to remember her grandfather by. When I asked Richard for the money, he made a face I had never seen. "Dad, a gold chain? Do you know what that costs? The girl can wait. She has many birthdays ahead of her. We'd be better off buying her something cheaper." I fell silent, but something inside of me broke that day. It wasn't about the money. It was about the way he spoke to me, as if I were a child asking for candy. The situation worsened month by month. Richard began to control every dollar I spent. He gave me a fixed weekly amount, as if it were an allowance. "It's for your own good, Dad," he would tell me. "At your age, it's easy to get tricked or to spend without realizing it." But I knew something wasn't right. I had worked for 40 years as a mechanic. I had raised that son, had saved every dollar to have a dignified old age, and now he was treating me as if I were mentally incompetent. Things got worse when I began to notice changes in the house. One day I came home from a walk in the park and found that they had changed the television. It was a huge modern screen, which must have cost a fortune. "Where did this television come from, son?" I asked him. "I bought it so you can enjoy your shows better." "Dad, the old one was no good anymore." But I knew my television worked perfectly. Hope and I had bought it just 2 years before she died. Then came Richard's new car, a late model vehicle, the kind that costs what I used to earn in 3 years of work. When I asked him, he told me it was necessary for his job, that the old one couldn't go on any longer. But I remembered that his previous car was barely 4 years old and was in perfect condition. I had checked it myself because even though I was retired, I still understood mechanics. One day while Richard was at work, I decided to check some papers he kept in the desk at home. It wasn't my intention to snoop, but something told me I needed to know what was happening with my money. What I found left me speechless. There were bills from expensive restaurants, receipts from a trip to Hawaii they had taken the month before without telling me anything, payments for private schools for my grandchildren when they had always gone to public schools. But what impacted me the most was finding a paper from the bank that showed the balance of my savings account. The amount was much lower than what I remembered, much lower. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake in my bed, looking at the ceiling, trying to understand what had happened to the money that Hope and I had saved for decades. The money from the overtime hours I worked, from the vacations we didn't take in order to save, from the simple meals we made to put away every dollar. The next day, I confronted Richard. "Son, I need you to explain to me what's happening with my savings. I saw the bank statement, and there's much less money than there should be." Richard got nervous, but he tried to keep his cool. "Dad, that money has been spent on your expenses, on the upkeep of the house, on your medicines. Life is very expensive. Money doesn't go as far as it used to." But I was no fool. I had done my calculations. Even with all my expenses, medicines, and food, so much money couldn't have been spent in such a short time. "Richard," I said firmly, "I want to see all the receipts for my expenses. I wanted to know exactly what my money was spent on." That's when I saw a facet of my son I had never seen. He became aggressive. He raised his voice. "Dad, that's enough. You gave me the trust to manage your finances because you knew you couldn't do it alone. Don't come questioning me now as if I were a thief." "I'm not saying you're a thief," I replied. "I just want to understand what happened to my savings." "Your savings were spent on living, Dad, on supporting you, on caring for you, on giving you a dignified life. And instead of thanking me, you come to me with distrust." That argument marked a before and after in our relationship. From that day on, Richard began to treat me with a coldness that broke my heart. I was no longer his dear father. I was an annoying burden that had to be tolerated. The following months were the most difficult of my life since Hope's death. Richard gave me less money each week. "You have to learn to manage better," he would say. "You can't spend as if we were rich." But I knew that he was still making large expenditures. Packages were constantly arriving at the house. He had renovated the entire kitchen. He had replaced the living room furniture. All with my money, I was sure. One day, my oldest grandson, Alex, who was 16 at the time, approached me. We had always had a special relationship. He would tell me his things. I would give him advice. "Grandpa," he said, "are you okay? I've seen you looking sad lately." I told him part of what was happening without going into too many details because I didn't want to turn him against his father. But Alex was smart. He understood more than I told him. "Grandpa, Dad told Mom that your savings ran out, that you don't have any money left, and that now he has to support you completely. But it seems strange to me because I know you were always a great saver." Those words confirmed what I suspected. Richard had lied to everyone, even his own wife, making them believe that I was an old man with no money, completely dependent on his generosity. That night, I made a decision. The next day, without saying anything to Richard, I went to the bank. I wanted to speak directly with an executive to understand what had happened exactly with my accounts. The meeting at the bank was revealing and heartbreaking at the same time. The executive, a very kind young man, showed me all the movements in my accounts over the last 2 years. Indeed, enormous amounts of money had come out, but not for house expenses or my medicines. The withdrawals coincided exactly with the dates Richard had made his big purchases: the car, the furniture, the trip, the children's tuition. "Mr. Thompson," the executive told me, "as I see here, your son has full power over your accounts. He can dispose of the money as he sees fit because you signed that authorization." "But that money was for my expenses, for my old age," I explained. "I understand your concerns, sir, but legally he can make use of those funds. Although, of course, if you believe there is some abuse, you can revoke that power and regain control of your finances." I left the bank with a mixture of sadness and determination. I had confirmed what I suspected. Richard had used my savings to improve his standard of living while making me believe that money had been spent on my own expenses. But what hurt me the most wasn't the money. It was the lie, the betrayal, the contempt. His own father had become an annoying burden whose money he could use without any problem. Over the following weeks, I began to plan my strategy. I wasn't going to remain silent. I wasn't going to allow him to continue treating me like an incompetent person, but I also didn't want to make a scandal that would affect my grandchildren. First, I hired a lawyer, an older man like me, who understood the situation and advised me on my rights. He confirmed that I could revoke the power I had given Richard and regain control of what was left of my money. He also helped me investigate exactly how much money Richard had spent and on what. The numbers were impressive. In 2 years, he had spent almost 80% of my life savings. But what the lawyer told me next surprised me. James, you can regain control of your finances, but you can also report your son for financial elder abuse. What he did is a crime. That option swirled in my head for days. To report my own son, to get him into legal trouble. As angry and hurt as I was, he was still my blood. Meanwhile, the relationship with Richard worsened even more. His comments about my spending became more hurtful. "Dad, you can't be asking for money all the time anymore," he would tell me. "Understand that you're no longer a productive man. Now you're an expense for the family." One day when I asked for money to buy my blood pressure medicine, he said something that broke my heart. "Dad, don't you think you take too many pills?" Sometimes I think doctors take advantage of old folks to prescribe them medicines they don't need. That day I understood that Richard no longer saw me as his father. He saw me as a financial burden he had to take care of. And the worst of it all was that he was doing it with my own money. The straw that broke the camel's back came 3 weeks later. It was a Friday night, and Richard came home with his family after having dinner at an expensive restaurant. I was watching television in the living room. "How was dinner?" I asked my grandchildren, who came in happy. "Delicious, Grandpa," Sophia told me. "Dad took us to that new restaurant downtown, the one with the view of the river. The food was incredible." Richard immediately tensed up. "Let's go to bed now," he told the children. "Your grandfather needs to rest." When the children were binding on, Richard approached me with an expression I had never seen. He was upset, very upset. "Dad, we need to talk," he told me. "Tell me, son." "Look, I can't go on like this. Maintaining this house, supporting your expenses, maintaining all of this is becoming unsustainable." "Unsustainable, but it's with my money." "Your money doesn't exist anymore, Dad. It's gone. What's left, I'm putting in from my own pocket." That's when I confirmed all my suspicions. Richard had spent practically all my savings and was now trying to make me feel guilty for it. "Richard," I told him with all the calm I could muster, "I know exactly how much money I had saved, and I know it was enough for many more years. What really happened to that money?" His reaction was explosive. "What are you implying, Dad? That I stole your money? Everything that has been spent has been on this house, on your food, on your medicines, on supporting you." "Then show me the accounts," I told him. "Show me exactly what every dollar was spent on, and I'll agree with you. I don't have to prove anything to you. I'm your son, not your employee, and I'm sick of you distrusting me when the only thing I've done is sacrifice for you." The argument continued to escalate. Richard shouted. I tried to remain calm until he said the words that changed everything. "Enough, Dad. Stop wasting my money because now it's my money that's keeping this house and your whims afloat. And if you don't like it, you can go live somewhere else." My money. He had said my money. After 2 years of making me believe he was helping me with my own savings, he had finally shown his true face. "Your money?" I asked him. "Yes, my money, because yours ran out months ago. Everything you spend now comes out of my pocket." In that moment, everything became crystal clear. Richard had not only spent my savings, but he was now treating me as if I were a freeloader living off his charity. That night I didn't sleep. I stayed awake thinking about everything that had happened, about all the lies, about all the disrespect, and I made the most difficult decision of my life. The next day, very early, while Richard was at work, I called my lawyer. "Sir," I told him, "I want you to proceed with everything. I want to regain control of my finances, and I want justice to be done." The process was quicker than I expected. In 2 days, the lawyer already had all the papers ready to revoke the power I had given Richard, but he had also prepared something else, a lawsuit for financial abuse against the elderly. But before proceeding with everything, I decided to give Richard a chance. One last chance to be honest with me and to acknowledge what he had done. On Friday night, when he arrived from work, I told him that we needed to talk. Richard, son, I'm going to give you one last chance to be honest with me. Tell me the truth about my money. Tell me exactly what you did with my savings and why. Richard looked at me with contempt. Dad, I've already told you 1,000 times. Your money was spent on supporting you. And now, if you want to continue living here, you have to understand that I set the rules. What rules? The rules of a person who supports another. No unnecessary expenses, no whims, no going around asking for money for nonsense. If you want something, you ask me for it, and I decide if it's necessary or not. And if I don't agree with those rules, then you can find another place to live and see if you find someone who is willing to support you as I have. That was the final straw. At that moment, I understood that the son I had raised, to whom I had given all my love and my teachings, no longer existed. In his place was a selfish, lying, and cruel man who saw his own father as a burden. All right, Richard, I told him with a calm that surprised myself. I accept your rules. He was surprised by my response. He surely expected me to protest, to get angry, but I already had my plan. That night, after the whole family went to sleep, I took out a suitcase and packed the most important things. The photo of Hope, some personal documents, essential clothing. I also took out a small box where I kept some of my wife's jewelry that Richard had never found. At 5 in the morning, while the whole house slept, I left silently. I walked to the corner where my lawyer was waiting for me in his car. Are you sure about this, James? He asked me. Completely sure, I replied. We went straight to the bank. At 8 o'clock sharp, when they opened, we were there. With the lawyer's papers, I immediately revoked the power I had given Richard. I regained full control of what was left of my accounts. But then came the biggest surprise. The bank executive informed us that Richard had scheduled an automatic transfer for that very morning. He was going to withdraw the last of the money left in my savings accounts. If you had arrived an hour later, the executive told us, the account would have been completely empty. We immediately canceled that transfer. Richard had planned to take every last dollar I had left. But what we did next was what was really going to impact him. With the lawyer's help, I moved all the remaining money to a new account in a different bank to which Richard had no access. We also initiated the legal process. The lawsuit for financial abuse against the elderly was ready, but the lawyer had also found something else. Richard had forged my signature on some bank documents to be able to make larger withdrawals. James, the lawyer told me, this is no longer just financial abuse. This is forgery of documents and fraud. Your son could go to jail. At that moment, I felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction because justice was finally going to be done. Sadness because that man who was going to face the consequences was my own son. But there was no turning back. At 10 in the morning, Richard received a call from the bank informing him that he no longer had access to my accounts. He immediately called my cell phone, furious. What did you do, Dad? The bank tells me I can no longer access your accounts. I did what I had to do, Richard. I regained control of my money. Where are you? Come to the house right now. I'm not going back to that house, son, and I'm not going to continue allowing you to abuse me. There was a silence on the other end of the line. Then his voice changed completely. Dad, I think there's a misunderstanding. Come to the house and we'll talk calmly. Everything can be fixed. There is nothing to fix, Richard. I've already made my decision. Dad, you can't do this. I'm your son. Everything I did was for your own good. If it had really been for your own good, we wouldn't be having this conversation. After that call, I turned off my phone. I didn't want to hear more lies, more manipulation. The lawyer had already prepared everything. I was going to stay temporarily in a hotel while I found a small apartment to live in. With what was left of my savings, I had enough to live modestly, but with dignity for many years. 2 days later, Richard received the notice of the lawsuit. The lawyer told me that he had called desperately, offering to return all the money if I dropped the charges. But it was too late. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the lack of respect, the lying, the abuse. It was about my own son having treated me like a useless person whose money he could manage as he pleased. The news spread quickly through the neighborhood. The neighbors began to murmur. Some supported me. Others criticized my decision to sue my own son. Mrs. Peterson, my neighbor for many years, approached me when she saw me in the park. James, is it true what they say, that you sued Richard? It's true, Mrs. Peterson, but he's your son. Family problems are sorted out in the family. There are problems that are sorted out in the family, I replied, and there are abuses that need justice to intervene. A week later, Richard appeared at my hotel. He was accompanied by his wife and my 2 grandchildren. The children looked confused and sad. Dad, Richard told me, I came with the whole family to ask for your forgiveness. I know I made a mistake, but we can solve it. Don't destroy your family over a money problem. It's not a money problem, Richard. It's a respect problem. His wife, Mary Ellen, approached me with tears in her eyes. James, please. The children miss their grandfather. Richard has already understood his mistake. We can start again. I looked at my grandchildren. Alex, the older one, looked at me with an expression I couldn't interpret. Sophia's eyes were full of tears. Grandpa, Sophia said, is it true that Dad stole your money? That question broke my heart. These innocent children were paying the consequences of their father's mistakes. Sophia, I said, your dad made wrong decisions with Grandpa's money, but that doesn't mean I don't love you. Richard intervened quickly. Dad, I propose something. I'll give you back all the money I spent, dollar for dollar. I'll ask for your forgiveness publicly if necessary, but withdraw the lawsuit and come back home. All the money? I asked. Everything. I'll have to take out loans. I'll have to sell some things, but I'll give it all back to you. For a moment, I saw something in his eyes that resembled genuine remorse, but I also knew that Richard was very good at acting when it suited him. And how do you guarantee me that it won't happen again? I give you my word of honor, Dad. Your word of honor, I repeated, the same word of honor you gave me when you told me that my money was being well looked after. Richard bowed his head. He knew he had no arguments. Dad, please, Mary Ellen insisted, give him a chance for the children. I looked at my grandchildren again. Alex approached me. Grandpa, he said in a low voice, I understand why you're angry with Dad, but we need you, and I think you need us too. Those words from the boy touched me deeply. He was right. I needed them too. They were my family, my continuation in this world. But I also knew that if I gave in at that moment, I would be teaching Richard that he could abuse me and then fix everything with tears and promises. Richard, I said finally, I'm going to give you a chance, but with very clear conditions. His face lit up. Whatever you want, Dad. First condition, you return all the money you spent from my savings, everything down to the last dollar, and you show me exactly how you're going to do it. I accept. Second condition, you will never again have access to my money. I will manage my finances completely on my own. I accept. Third condition, you apologize to me publicly in front of the whole family and the neighbors for the abuse you committed. Richard hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. I accept. And fourth condition, if you ever disrespect me again or treat me as if I were a burden, I leave forever, and there are no more chances. I accept all the conditions, Dad. I looked at my grandchildren who were watching me with hope. I looked at Mary Ellen, who seemed relieved, and I looked at Richard, trying to see if there was really remorse in his eyes or just convenience. All right, I said finally, I'm going to give you this opportunity, but I want you to understand one thing very clearly. This is not forgiveness. This is a chance for redemption. Forgiveness, you will have to earn with deeds, not with words. The following months were of slow but steady reconstruction. Richard kept his word. He sold the new car and bought a more modest one. He returned the expensive furniture and got the old ones back. He took out loans and worked overtime to return the money he had spent. It wasn't easy for him, and it wasn't easy for me to forgive completely either. But little by little, our relationship began to heal. The most important thing was that Richard understood that I was not a burden, but a person with dignity and rights. He understood that age didn't take away my right to make my own decisions and to manage my own life. I withdrew the lawsuit when he completed the repayment of the money, and when I saw that he had really changed his attitude towards me. Now, 5 years later, I can say that I made the right decision. It was painful, it was difficult, but it was necessary. Sometimes, to save a relationship, you first have to be willing to lose it. Richard learned to value his father. My grandchildren learned that grandparents deserve respect, and I learned that it's never too late to defend yourself and reclaim the dignity one deserves. Today I live in my own small house. I manage my own money. I make my own decisions, but I also maintain a close and loving relationship with my family. A relationship based on mutual respect, not on dependency. The most important lesson I learned is that true love sometimes requires difficult decisions. If I hadn't acted firmly, Richard would never have learned his lesson, and I would have spent the rest of my life being treated like a second-class citizen in my own family. To all the parents and grandparents who may be going through something similar, I say, it's never too late to reclaim your dignity. Age does not make you lesser people. Your children do not have the right to treat you as burdens or as incompetent. And to all the children I say, your parents gave you life. They raised you. They sacrificed for you. When the time comes that they need care, do it with love and respect, not with condescension or by taking advantage of their vulnerability. Because at the end of the day, the way we treat our parents in their old age is the example we give our own children of how we want to be treated when we reach that age. My story doesn't end there. There's something else I want to tell you. Something I discovered after this whole process that gives a completely different twist to this story. 6 months ago, while organizing some of Hope's old documents, I found something that left me speechless. It was a letter she had written, addressed to me, dated 2 weeks before her death. In that letter, Hope confessed to me that she had been observing Richard's behavior during her last years of life and that she had serious concerns about his intentions with our money. My dear James, the letter said, if you are reading this, it is because I am no longer with you. There is something I need to tell you about Richard. During these last few months, I have noticed that he asked very specific questions about our savings, about the house, about our bank accounts. Questions that a son shouldn't ask unless he has particular intentions. The letter continued. I have seen how he visits us more often since they told us that my illness was terminal, and his questions always revolve around money. James promised me that if something happens to me, you will not give full control of our finances to Richard. At least not until you have the absolute certainty that his intentions are pure. I was frozen reading those lines. Hope had seen what I had not wanted to see. She had detected Richard's true intentions long before she died. But the letter had more revelations. Hope had discovered that Richard had been borrowing money using our house as collateral without telling us anything. She had found documents hidden in his room that proved he already had significant debts and was desperate to get money. I didn't want to tell you anything at the time, the letter continued, because you were suffering so much with my illness, and I didn't want to cause you more pain. But now that I am not going to be here, you need to know the truth. Richard is not interested in taking care of you. He is interested in our money. At the end of the letter, Hope gave me a piece of advice. If he ever proposes to manage our finances, say no. Seek help from someone you trust, but never give Richard full control of our savings. And if you have already done so when you read this letter, take back that control immediately. Reading that letter was like receiving a message from the beyond. Hope, even after death, was still looking after me and protecting our heritage. But there was something else in the letter that impacted me even more. Hope had hidden money. For years, she had been saving small amounts in a secret account that Richard never knew existed. At the bank where we collect our pension, the letter said, there is a savings account in my name with the code 4189. I saved money there for you, for your old age, so that you would never depend on anyone. There is enough money in that account for you to live with dignity for many years. The next day I ran to the bank. The account existed just as the letter said, and the amount of money in it left me speechless. Hope had managed to secretly save an amount that was almost equal to what Richard had spent from our main savings. My wife, from her deathbed, had managed to protect me from a betrayal she had foreseen. When I confronted Richard with his mother's letter, his reaction was completely different from all the previous ones. For the first time, he didn't try to justify himself or to lie. He broke down completely. Dad, he told me through tears, Mom was always smarter than all of us. She knew exactly who I was and what I was capable of doing. So you admit that even before your mother's death, you had already planned to steal from me? I asked. I didn't plan it exactly like that, he replied. But I did have a lot of debts, a lot of financial problems that you didn't know about. And when mom got sick, I started to think that money would eventually be mine anyway. Eventually yours, you mean when I died? Richard couldn't hold my gaze. Dad, forgive me. I know I have no forgiveness, but forgive me. At that moment, I understood that the betrayal had been much deeper than I had imagined. Richard had not only abused my trust after Hope's death, he had been planning to appropriate our money since before she died. But I also understood something more important. Hope had given me the tools to protect myself and to maintain my dignity, even after her death. With the money she had secretly saved, plus what Richard had returned to me, I now had enough resources to live comfortably for the rest of my days. But more importantly, I had the peace of mind of knowing that my wife had taken care of me until the end. I decided to tell this part of the story to my grandchildren. I wanted them to know what kind of extraordinary woman their grandmother had been, and I also wanted them to learn an important lesson about honesty and family loyalty. Alex, who is now 21, told me something that filled me with pride. Grandma Hope taught us that in a true family, you protect each other. You don't take advantage of them. Sophia, who is now 20, added, and you taught us that it's never too late to stand up for yourself and claim the respect one deserves. Those words confirmed to me that despite all the pain and betrayal we lived through, something good had come out of this whole experience. My grandchildren had learned important values about dignity, respect, and mutual protection in the family. Richard, for his part, has continued to keep his promise of change. He has worked hard to rebuild the trust he lost, but above all, he has learned to value the time he has with me, knowing that this time is limited and that no amount of money can buy back the lost moments. A few months ago, he approached me with a different proposal. Dad, he said, I want you to know that I've learned my lesson, but I also want to ask you for something. I want you to teach me to be a better man, like you were. I want to learn to grow old with dignity, as you have done. That conversation marked a new beginning in our relationship. It is no longer the relationship of a father who has to defend himself from an abusive son. It is the relationship of two adult men who have gone through a crisis and have come out stronger. Now, at 72 years old, I can say that I have lived a full life. I have known true love with hope. I have raised a son who, despite his mistakes, has known how to redeem himself. I have seen my grandchildren grow up and become good people. But above all, I have learned that it is never too late to take the reins of your own life. I have learned that age does not make you a victim unless you allow it. My message to all who hear this story is simple. Respect your elders, but also teach your elders to respect themselves. Old age is not synonymous with helplessness. The experience and wisdom that come with the years are powerful tools that we should not underestimate. And to my fellow generation, I say, do not allow your children or anyone else to treat you like second-class citizens. You have worked all your life, you have sacrificed, you have fought. You deserve to live your last years with dignity and respect. If someone is abusing you financially or emotionally, seek help. Talk to someone you trust. Contact a lawyer. Go to the institutions that protect older adults. Do not stay silent out of fear or shame. I was lucky to have a wife who took care of me even after she was gone and to have the strength to make the difficult decisions I had to make. But not everyone is that lucky. That is why it is important that we talk about these issues, that we bring them to light. Elder abuse is more common than we think, and it often comes from the people who should protect us the most, our own children. But I also want to say that not all children are like Richard was. Most children genuinely care for their parents and respect them. My story should not generate widespread distrust between parents and children. What it should generate is awareness that these abuses exist, that one must be alert, that one must always keep personal dignity above all else. Today, when I look back, I do not regret any of the decisions I made. It was painful. It was difficult. There were moments when I thought I had lost my son and my grandchildren forever. But in the end, those difficult decisions were what saved our family. Richard learned to be a better son. My grandchildren learned important values, and I learned that it is never too late to defend oneself and claim the respect one deserves. Hope's letter is still on my nightstand. I read it from time to time, especially when I miss her company. And every time I read it, it reminds me that true love does not end with death. True love finds ways to protect and care even from beyond. My wife took care of me for 45 years of marriage and continued to take care of me after her death. That is what I call a true love. Now, when I see Richard with his children, I see that he has learned that lesson. He has learned that being a father does not just mean providing financially. It means protecting, caring, respecting, and valuing. It means being the kind of man his children will want to be when they grow up. And when I see my grandchildren, I see hope. I see a new generation that has learned from our mistakes, that understands the value of family, but also the value of individual respect. This is my story, a story of betrayal and redemption, of pain and healing, of loss and recovery. But above all, it is a story of dignity, of the dignity that we should never lose, no matter our age or the circumstances we face. I hope my experience serves as an inspiration to other older adults who may be going through similar situations. And I hope it serves as a point of reflection for children who have aging parents in their care. The family is the most important thing we have in life, but a true family is built on mutual respect, not on abuse or exploitation. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, it is never too late to reclaim your dignity and to demand the respect you deserve. My best wishes from me, James, and until the next story. And if you'd like to hear more true stories from a lifetime of lessons, please subscribe to Whispers of Experience.